Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for this pre-concert talk for our upcoming shows. I'm delighted that Welz Kauffman, our managing director, has joined me today. Thank
Great
you,
to be here.
Welz.
Thank you.
You know, I'm still floating on cloud nine, coming off that Helios concert. Helios, Beethoven, John Delancey was such a cool synergy of composer and actor and new music and classic work, and just a great way to start the season.
It sure was really celebratory and a great way to open 22-23. If I could just add another piece to all the musical things you just did, no question, those are the key things. But also in Tucson, a city that celebrates looking up at the mountains or the Swarrows, or there's so many astronomical associations, all of which I now am a member of. Best school of astronomy in the world is at the University of Arizona. The Webb telescope, the mirrors, and all of that technology basically was created at the university. The sciences in general at the university, biosphere too, all those things. But this is the right place to be doing this. Charles Lindbergh dedicated the airport. I mean, on and on and on about things up in the air. And a kind of resurgence, I think, because of the Webb telescope.
Right.
But also because the late great Nichelle Nichols passed away. Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek. So they're pop culture pieces. And I say pop culture with great respect, not trying to be in any way silly or superficial, because what she did as an African American actress in the 60s was beyond extraordinary and had ramifications. I mean, she was part of NASA choosing people of color to become astronauts. And it's just amazing stuff. And the fact that that happened while we were planning this weekend. But at the end of the day, it's Tim Takach's piece, which the audience continues to. I mean, I see people at the grocery store wearing my True Concord t-shirt, and they come up and say, wow, that was a really great weekend. What a exciting, different way to open a True Concord season. And largely Deborah Johnson's gorgeous projections.
I can't wait to see those, by the way. I have my back to them all the time, but I look forward to seeing them.
Yeah, well, and I was cueing the guy who was using the computer to make it happen. So I was doing a lot of this, but they're quite spectacular. And she is quite the artist, and she was fine-tuning all the way down to Friday afternoon when we did the first performance, which is a little nervous-making and nail-biting, but the result was really glorious. And the singers didn't get to see it either.
I know, they keep telling us, when do we get to see this? When do we get to see it? So
you know what's really remarkable about that? It's as if you all were seeing it, because I felt the inspiration. Certainly Tim's music, which is, as James Reel, the classical music director for the local classical music station, said in a Facebook post, it's just glorious music. And he loved the fact that you had chosen the last movement of Beethoven 9, which references stars and heavens and things up there, to not only showcase the artistry of the wonderful artists in True Concord and soloists, but Sasha.
Oh yeah, he was a rock star, wasn't he?
I mean, any pianist who even dares to take on Liszt's transcriptions of Beethoven symphonies is either, smoking something, which means that now with Joe Biden, they're not going to go to jail, and that's a good thing, but or they know what they're doing, and I think with Sasha, it's probably a little both. As his page turner, which I was honored to do, I was terrified watching what he had to do, and the audience went nuts. They went nuts. So it wasn't a bonbon at the end, but in a way, doing a movement, which in many classical music circles is heresy, was perfect, right? So people got Helios. Our new friend, John Delancey, did a spoken prologue to Helios, which just fit beautifully. He and Tim had talked about it. You and Tim and John had talked about it. It wasn't very long, but it set a tone and a mood. But the Beethoven really closed things off. And I was thinking about that as we were preparing this, because in a way, that was a little bit longer, but kind of could have fit on the November program.
Right. Well, of course, it's a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece in and of itself.
Yes. Yeah. And we're going to be talking about some wonderful mini musical masterpieces. But I do look forward to seeing those visuals, and everybody can see those when we make the video recording captured by Arizona PBS available here soon. And so the artists will get to see it, I'll get to see it finally, and those who want to see it again can watch it, or they can share with their friends and get in on it, because I keep hearing it was just a wonderful combination of visual.
No question about it. And that same person who stopped me at AJ's in the prepared foods area, just so you know, near the cookies, she said, so why are you doing these video concerts? She said, I just saw it. I don't need to see it again. I actually, she said, I want to treasure the live experience I had. I said, that's fantastic. That's great that you did. So there are people that didn't get to come, who might live in Kansas, that want to see it. But as importantly, in terms of building new audiences for classical music, to have bite-sized chunks of all of the video concerts that have been created that will show up on our YouTube channel is a great way to introduce people to music and to Concord. And Helios, with its 12 movements?
I think it's 15.
15? Oh, right, because there are those interludes and things. Which last anywhere from, 3 to 7 minutes?
Exactly.
Something like that. Perfect for this kind of usage. And she got really excited about that, because she said, well, then I can tell people to go to that and get a taste of it without seeing 60 minutes of something.
Exactly. And that sort of segues nicely into this next program we're doing. You know,
musical miniatures.
Exactly. Because we get little bite-sized morsels of these great composers in these highly compact but just ingenious and really tasty pieces, and so it's kind of a survey of these great composers and these miniature, what are we calling it,
magnificent musical miniatures.
I love that, which is the new official definition
3M.
of the word.
We should get a sponsor from Minnesota.
Now you're talking. And it's our
Post-its.
new definition according to the Welz Kauffman edition of the Grove's Dictionary of Music of the word.
Now I'm in legal
motet.
trouble. Yes.
So this concert started as an idea of a survey and sort of a tour through the genre of motet, which is exactly what we described. They are miniature masterpieces.
Standalone in and of themselves.
Right. And so we start with Bach, because really this genre finds its pinnacle, I think, in these 6 motets of Bach, and we've done several of them, but this will be our first time, which with this I think his greatest. It's Singet dem Herrn.
It definitely is.
You know, and it's
which is saying a lot.
Right. 2 choirs, and we'll be using an edition that has a string quartet with choir 1, and then a wind group of reeds that will be performing with choir 2, and this wonderful back and forth that goes on between the 2 choirs in a dialogue. You know, Singet dem Herrn, neues Licht, sing a new song unto the Lord. It's exuberant, it's also contemplative, but it's complex and ingenious, and it's Bach at his finest, I think.
And Bach using his own physical situations, because he always was writing for the churches that he was in.
Yes.
And when is Singet dem Herrn from?
Well, it's from his Leipzig period.
So this is the Thomaskirche, where he's buried.
Yeah.
And one feels when one approaches that particular tomb. But what also is fascinating about the church is the antiphonal sense of it, and where the choir lofts are, and there have been lots of master theses written about, how many singers did he really use. And of course, the famous choir from the Thomaskirche is the boys, who are extraordinary. But I'm really glad you chose this particular piece, because it is a masterwork when people were writing short works. The history of short works in the Romantic period is that so many composers felt overshadowed by what Beethoven had done, right? Can't possibly write a symphony. He did it all. Mahler figured out how to do that, and really, really long ones too. But a lot of composers, especially the Romantics we think of as Liszt and Chopin and Schumann. Schumann wrote symphonies, but he was never as proud of them as he was as his miniatures. And that's, I think, a part of music history that should be celebrated, not as something lesser, but as these genius, germane moments in the output, somewhat perpetrated by Beethoven and his ability to write long forms in a genius sort of way.
But let's take Mozart as another example. I mean, this is the quintessential opera composer,
Absolutely.
right? And of course, numerous symphonies and concertos.
And piano concerto composer.
And of course,
which are mini operas in and of themselves.
Yes, but this Ave Verum Corpus, which is, I don't know, 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes.
Of pure heaven.
It could be the best 3 minutes of music ever written. It is quintessential Mozart in this compact form, but just exquisite beauty. Again, with choir, in this case, original instrumentation will have the string quintet and organ, and it's one of the gems.
So let me jump in, because you're absolutely right about on all those scores. Why do you enjoy doing these kind of smorgasbord performances and programs? Because it is not easy to do, and I say that to both compliment you, but also to refer to a gentleman that I worked for, Robert Shaw, who loved these kinds of programs, but agonized not only over selecting the pieces, but then the order of the pieces, and the length of a first half and the length of a second half. How do you close? What should be the first thing? He really worked on, and his wife, and they're both passed away, Caroline Shaw, who he met. She was a singer in the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra chorus, and she finally just said, Bobby, your programs are like necklaces. They're necklaces of beautiful jewels. And it doesn't matter, and she had beautiful jewels. It doesn't matter if you put them in this order or that order. It's all gonna work out in the end. And she was actually right. And he would mix things up, especially with the famous Robert Shaw Christmas program. But he was very, he wanted to take people on a journey.
Right, that's right.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, and I'm only laughing because I
Because
feel...
of my Southern accent being
well, that too, right?
such a massive
that was actually
failure.
brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, these are one of the most difficult types of programs to put together. I mean, it's nothing to say, okay, we're going to do the B minor Mass.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Done.
Yeah.
But
not a cakewalk, but it is what it is.
But in terms of programming.
Right.
And so when you put together these programs of several pieces, there are so many factors. I mean, we're thinking about, the vocal demands on the singers. We're talking about wanting to create an arc and a journey, as you said, for our audiences and our artists alike. So, I have moved these little puzzle pieces around numerous times. I've landed in a place here with this program we've got. I feel pretty good about it. And I'll do the concert and I'll probably think, maybe I could have, moved a few other things around. But,
they're never done, are they?
No,
these kinds of programs.
it's a process.
They're never,
doesn't it?
And I think that's the beauty of music in many ways, not to get saccharine here, but it's the fact that you could mix and match it like a Rubik's Cube, and it would always come out okay, even ending with verum corpus, which many people do that, almost as an encore, which I think is short shrift for such a masterpiece, but it can be done. So you've picked O Magnum Mysterium of Skip Lauridsen, recorded over 100 times. Written, I think, in the mid-90s. Does that sound about right? When he was composer
I'd say early
for
90s,
the Early Master Chorale. Performed thousands of times. Mr. Shaw loved to do it. And he grew up working with Hindemith and Poulenc and Copland, so he had taste and he had experience with the greats. So tell us about that particular piece.
Well, it goes back to your first question too about how was I thinking about putting this program together, and I sort of wanted to do a musicological journey through it too, because we start with the Bach, which is the pinnacle, I think, of this genre, and then from there we kind of start over to the beginning of this the real interesting part of the development is with Palestrina's, the Renaissance master of this form, and his Sicu Cervis, which is just exquisite. We trace it then to England and to Germany and to France and finally to America. And we come to this incredible piece by Morton Lauridsen. And I would say it's this piece that made Lauridsen famous.
No question about it.
I mean, Lux Aeterna is a powerful piece.
It is.
And,
but not as well known as this.
Not as well known because this one's accessible. I mean, high school choirs have sung it, college choirs have sung it, but the big professional choirs have done it too because it's such great music.
I want to jump in and just say there's a difference between, correct me if I'm wrong, accessible and easy.
Okay.
Right? Because sometimes the most simplistic, that's the wrong word too, the most simple of technical works are the ones you work on. Ave Verum Corpus, great example,
Yes.
right? Are the ones you work on all your life.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing Rachmaninoff Vespers.
Right.
Rachmaninoff Vespers is not like a Rachmaninoff piano concerto when it comes to technical difficulty, nor is it from a singing point of view. But man, oh man, talk about a journey.
Exactly. So this piece, and by accessible, I mean it's accessible because it can be performed by groups of varying levels.
And still be good.
And still be good.
Enjoyable for performer and audience.
Yes, and it's highly accessible for audiences because its language, it just, Lauridsen has this way of utilizing language, I think, that goes right to the soul. It goes right to the heart. That's what makes him a great composer, I think. But the same could be said
honest,
about,
it's sincere, it's got integrity,
yeah,
and it's just darn gorgeous.
It is. So,
and this was an occasion piece too. I mean, he wrote it on commission from the gentleman who was the longtime board chair of the LA Master Chorale, who wanted it for a gift for his wife.
Yeah, well, that's a nice
and
gift.
Talk about a wedding gift. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God. It's like Siegfriedel, right? For that Wagner wrote for Cosima. There are no other associations between Wagner and Lauridsen, but that particular part of it is kind of magic when one knows that, because it gives a backstory to the piece that then the moment you hear it, I think for audiences it becomes their piece.
Yeah.
And that's what I think magical about these kinds of programs. You can go to a Mozart Requiem program, a Verdi Requiem program, a Britain War Requiem program. You will be amazed, you'll be stunned, you'll be overwhelmed. These pieces that have short duration are equally impactful in completely different ways, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, Brahms. We've done the Brahms Requiem several times.
Who didn't write his first symphony for 30 years.
Well, right. Well,
because of Beethoven.
Well, exactly. But he wrote a number of these motets, these short mini masterpieces, and this Warum ist das Licht gegeben is his finest. It has an incredible depth to it, sophistication.
From a person not very religious as well. It's interesting about text and music and what people do. The Requiem is a good example of that too, but it's a magnificent work.
Right. Well,
and this one, my God.
Yeah, and he called his Requiem a human Requiem, right? I mean, he had a more universal look on faith and life and such. This piece it's a sacred text, but it transcends, sacredness. There's something universal about it. This is about life and death and the meaning of life, and it's very powerful in its words, but also in its music. It incorporates a chorale tune in it, which he took after the model of Bach, of course, which starts the whole program. And then this whole concert ends with a chorale, if you will, a beloved hymn.
Sure does.
Amazing Grace, which could be the most known and loved hymn or
spiritual folk
hymn,
exactly.
however you want to describe it.
It defies description and definition, and yet it celebrates all of the ones you just mentioned at the same time. Very rare piece.
Yeah, and the words they just hit home, right? It's about our,
especially today.
Yeah, about our frailty, about our travails, about our shortcomings as humans and as humanity. But there is grace. There is this commonality of love and brotherhood and all that we share in common. That unites us and lifts the human spirit and brings us together and calls us to do better, to be better to each other. So it really is a universal message of hope, I think. I should also mention that we have another American composer on this program, Caroline Shaw, who was the youngest person to win the Pulitzer Prize in music for her partita for 8 voices.
I'm not even sure she submitted it. I think somebody else.
Is that right?
Did. I think so. Yeah.
Wow, is her star on the rise though, big time.
Yeah, it's there.
And we have a wonderful setting by her of Psalm 84. It's how lovely are their dwellings, which is a text that Brahms said in his Requiem. But this is with some of Caroline's techniques by which she's become famous. It's sort of an oral experience that takes you to another world. There is beauty, but there is mystery and just intrigue with how she sets words for voices. It's really cool.
And of course, she's a marvelous singer, being a member of Roomful of Teeth.
Yep.
And that's where partita was first done. She wrote it for them, and has been writing with them in mind and other organizations, but I would say mostly with her own love of singing. Singing is the original instrument, after all.
Absolutely.
And she is an incredibly young, very special person that we're going to have around for a long time, writing great stuff. We just never know what it's going to be.
Exactly.
Which is exciting.
So I'm really pleased to share it and all of these pieces. I think that really do create a journey.
Definitely.
In many ways, musicologically, historically, but just emotionally and spiritually. I think it's one that I know the artists and I are looking forward to sharing with everybody and inviting everyone to join us.
And what are the artists going to do that is a unique signature moment for True Concord?
Well, on programs like this, when we have, as you called it, a smorgasbord of...
We'll go back to the necklace. I think that's
okay.
a little more elegant.
The necklace of
Yes.
fine jewels.
The late great Mrs. Shaw would have preferred that.
Okay, let's go with that. But as is our custom, our singers will be giving little introductions, spoken introductions about these little jewels.
And about themselves, so they introduce themselves.
Absolutely.
People just love that.
And what I appreciated about it is not only are they giving a little inside information about each of the pieces, but they talk about how these pieces speak to them and are special to them, and invite the listeners to come on this journey with them on that piece.
You most definitely do that. The artists of True Concord, whether it's those experiences which are, truly unique in the business. I'm sure there's somebody else that's going to write me a letter about how they do it in, Poughkeepsie. But it for me, it is an insight into the artist's brain and heart,
Yes.
and then into the work itself. And I find it to be incredibly inviting, as I find when we do cookies afterwards.
Absolutely.
Which I know, I bring cookies up all the time, but that was one of the things that really hit me and my husband about True Concord is we like cookies, but then there are the cookies, and you're there with fellow members of the audience who've just experienced something extraordinary, like we did with our first talk back, which people will hear more about, which we did over the Helios weekend. But that's kind of a formal setting, informal formal setting. This is really about celebration of what one has just experienced, and we're going to be we're post-COVID-ish, right?
Yes.
We're able to do it again.
Yeah, no, we're really good. In fact, you were telling me that when you announced cookies at your
Huge cheers. Yes. In fact, I like the sound of applause. So I think I'm going to start with cookies.
Start with cookies.
Yeah.
That is a winner.
Yeah, it's
and
a fail-safe.
As you mentioned, that as COVID wanes and we continues to do so, that we'll have more of our artists be able to come out after
And
the
visit
concerts,
people.
and because that's an important part of the experience.
Just a couple of them. Doesn't have to be all 32.
But sharing stories about what we
that's
just
right.
experienced together.
And to celebrate with an audience member and receive their appreciation. I think that's a really important part of this. Singers in a choir, in a vocal ensemble of multi-members, they don't necessarily expect to be singled out. And they deserve to be. And I'm not saying this is a requirement of people at the cookie moment, but it's a feel-good. It's really, really nice to be recognized. One of the beauties of Takach's piece are the solo moments and the trio moments and the duet moments that again, or Beethoven 9 with the quartet, right? To be able to hear people individually and then sort of fold themselves back into the ensemble. It's a very
that's what makes True Concord choral artists to me very special, is their ability to find that blend and work towards that ensemble sound, but as you said, come out and just explore and share their entire range of colors with an audience as a soloist, but also when they're sharing just their personal experiences in the spoken word about the music. We get to feel closer to them and get a better idea of them as people.
Definitely. And not to make all of this about Robert Shaw, but there's so many distinct comparisons. That was the soloist coming out of the Robert Shaw chorale was a thing he did all the time too. So Florence Copleff, even Sylvain Nair was originally a member of the choir, and he plucked her out to do the Poulenc Gloria, which was her first big solo piece and first recording, all with him. Hard to believe that someone would take that on. I think she's still in shock, and that was 30 plus years ago now. a lot of the men, especially the ones that he constantly used for things like Messiah and even Elijah. It is I don't know whether you're deliberately mimicking, copying, honoring that tradition, but it's something that happens at True Concord.
Well, I'm doing it only because we're able to.
Well, you've got the artists.
You've got
to have the voices to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to put everybody in that spot.
That's
necessarily.
right.
Tim's piece, I could go on and on about it as other people have had. We're so proud that he's joining on your invitation to be True Concord's composer in residence with his wife, Jocelyn, so composers in residence. And of course, not to look out too far in the distance, but in January we'll be celebrating with her, and he'll be coming to town as well.
Right.
So have them both around for the world premiere of her Here I Am.
Right. They're both just really great, down-to-earth, warm, talented, smart, fun people. And
Parents.
How often do you get a married couple?
Yeah. How often do you work out the details around a concert experience like I was doing with Tim when he's at a Little League baseball team with his son, and talking to me and then going, no, run, all those wonderful things. They're not they're not ivory tower composers, but they're wonderful composers. Yeah. And boy, are they great singers, which, like Caroline Shaw. Yes. Oh my God, her name is Caroline Shaw. I just realized
we
that.
mentioned two
Robert's.
Caroline Shaws today.
Okay, that was a weird moment. Anyway, that they know how to sing. They know the voice. Yeah. Helios certainly proved that. Here I Am will do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Notebooks of Da Vinci did that. It's an exciting new step as you are looking toward the 20th anniversary for True Concord, and not to let too many cats out of the bag, but looking to the 25th anniversary of True Concord as well. It's an exciting moment.
It's an exciting time for True Concord.
Definitely.
And it's
music in Tucson.
Yes, and it's great to have more robust audiences coming out of COVID. I'm especially excited about what's going on in Green Valley. I just came back from a meeting last night with one of our support groups down in Green Valley. They're just really pumped to build back our audiences here coming out of COVID, and just there's so much great music to come together around, and that's what True Concord is all about. I mean, the masterworks, the new music, and everything in between, and we get all of that here in this program that we're coming up on here at the beginning of November. So can't wait to share all of this music with you, and look forward to having you join us. And by the way, you can get one of these handsome t-shirts in the lobby at the concerts. We're proud to wear them, and it's just we're so proud to have you as part of the True Concord family in this endeavor that's just so special for all of us. So
absolutely right.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
And welcome to 22-23.
That's right.